Hello, trampoline friends. Welcome to Trampoline Insight. Today is episode 21. And once again, we bring you another exciting guest. This time, the Nadia Comaneci of trampoline.
Today, we are joined by a French trampolinist who pushed the limits of the sport throughout the 1990s, where he won the World Championships in synchro, and he also won the silver medal at World Championships for individual trampoline. He pushed the envelope competing unorthodox routines with multiple twisting, triple somersaults, but he might be better known for being the only athlete to score a perfect 10 in execution at the World Championships. Please help us welcome Manu Durand.
Hi, Manu. We are so excited to have you on. How are you?
Good
How are you
morning, boys. I'm doing very well, thank you.
This is great to have you here. You have no idea the introduction that we gave.
Since,
Oh, no, I don't. I have actually an idea of the introduction you gave about me.
It's been too long since we've talked, right? We used to see you at some of our training camps and some of our competitions, and I think the generation, at least that I grew up in, everybody knows you, right? But there's some athletes nowadays that they don't know who Nuno, myself, and if you grew up in the 90s, forget about it, right? They're gone.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that we're trying to do really is to help these athletes see who paved the way for them, who created, why is the sport the way it is now? And we're really excited to learn some of your history and get some of the stories that I'm sure you have tons of stories, and we probably can't hit not even half of them, but we'll try our best. So why don't we get started? Why don't you tell everyone how did you get started in trampoline and how old you were?
So I studied trampoline at 7, and I was the oldest of 3. So my mom was busy at home with my sister and my younger brother. So she asked me to find a sport in a gym nearby. There was a gym walking distance from my home. So the goal was to find something there, so she wouldn't have necessarily to walk me there. So I tried a few things, not necessarily in that gym prior, swimming, judo, but didn't really connect well with these sports. Like I didn't get the passion. But on a Saturday in September of 1984, when I walk into the gym and jump on that Nissan half-inch bed, I did connect. And basically I spent about 5 years in my original gym at Les Moulineaux with one coach. And then when I was 11, I moved to the Youth National Sports Center, which is basically a place where you go to school from 8 to 4, and then you train from 6 to 8, 5 days a week.
Wow.
And then
how far was that from your family?
It was an hour from home, train.
And you would sleep there as well?
Yes, we had basically it was an apartment where all the member of the center who were not locals would stay together.
Nice.
So that was from 11. I spent 3 years over there. What's interesting to notice, like when I walked in September of '88 in that place, I think my best DD was like 3.0 at the time. By the end of that first year, I was at 7.0. So I gained 4 points of DD in my first year, which was pretty much showing like how intense was the training and the fact to be already alongside athletes that were better than me, and that worked very well with me.
And as
So,
as
yeah.
as an 11-year-old living in this apartment away from your family, right? Was it something that you just enjoyed because you got to jump on a trampoline and you had some freedom away from your family, or were you at 11 years old you were focused on becoming a champion?
Well, I was just focusing more on being the best at something. So it was not necessarily the notion of being a champion at something. I think it was just me, the competitor inside, a little cocky, who wanted just to be better than anyone else and everything. So that's more the force that was driving this time of my life around 11.
And who were those mentors that helped you through that process? First, initially on the first club, and then after that, and what idols did you have along your career?
So the first mentors definitely were my parents, because they allowed me to do that. So they let me, because it's not easy, you leave your kid on his own at 11. So, and it's not anywhere near your home. So that's the first one that they had the courage to say, okay, well, go live your passion, and we'll see where that lands. And then after that, like back at the time, it was like 88, 89. So we're still very much in the Pioline years. Lionel was I think he quit in 88 after Worlds, but he won in Bercy in 86, and I was there when he won. So it was definitely the name that was sounding very strong at the time, because it was the closest we could connect to in terms of performance and in terms of what trampoline looks like, basically. But after that, I mean, we already have Fabrice Schwertz, who was coming up, and I would say that Fabrice was because I could see him and I could actually understand what he was doing. When I was in '86 at Worlds, I had barely understanding of what they were competing on, like those routines, the same, completely impossible for me. But with Fabrice, we started to connect a bit more in the sense of I can see, I can understand the difficulty, I can understand the tricks. So what do I have to do to get there?
Yeah, and what coaches led you through that process from the beginning?
So my first club coach was Christian Rotrou in Issy-les-Moulineaux. Then I had Laurent Casmerziac, who was also the president of the French Trampoline Federation at the time, who was a coach in the youth sports and school. Wow. He was very involved the first year, and then things starting to get a little bit more difficult on year 2 and year 3, which led me to block out. So I had a bit block out, maybe adolescence crisis, or I don't know, but by age 14, it was a very tough year. 1991 was my most difficult year. I will almost call it defining year, in the sense that I ended up the season in June, after I had forfeit my first competition, the National Cup 91. I never forfeited in my life. This one, I just could not. I was too lost. I did nationals, not too well, and then I decided to not participate to the summer camp for the national squad. I wanted a break. I wanted to just see where I stand in, and if it was something I was going to pursue. So with the help of my parents, we decided just to take a break from everything. So I quit the sports and school. I relocated to school close to home. So I went back home. I quit my club and I moved to a new club, to a new gym, because I really wanted to work with Philippe Labo. You probably know him. I mean, he's been around the community for a very long time. And he was my club coach from 91 to 2001. And he built me back. So he gave me the love for the sport back, the trust back. And I think it was more by his attitude, his behavior, his character, and his ethics, like what he was trying to pass on to me. So I did a deep search, like introverted, and came back. So 92 was actually a very strong year for me. And the following year was a little bit more challenging, because it was still an hour commute to go train, and I was not sleeping over there. So I was training once to twice a week at best.
Wow.
At that level, it was not enough. So 93 was not great, but we decided that I would apply for the National Center. So in September of 93, I moved to Antibes, where I did all my career from 93 to 2001. Another interesting point is in 93. So when I arrived at the center, my best DD was 10 point, I don't know, something, 10.1.
And how old were you in 93?
16.
16.
Yeah. And by the end of 94, in December, I did my first 14. So again, within that first year being in the training center, I got 4 points of DD.
Wow. That's a big jump.
That was a huge jump. I gained 5 kilos, but it was all muscle. It was, I mean, because I was taking the train to go to school because I was in Cannes. And then I was walking from school to the gym after school, which was a 45-minute walk. And I did that 5 days a week. And that's one way, and then you come back. So that was my conditioning was an hour and a half of walking daily, with trainings included.
With the backpack and gym bag and
backpack,
all this stuff.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's awesome.
Yeah, these kids nowadays don't know what that is.
No, but it was
a whole new world.
It was a great time.
They walk to the car. They walk from the house to the car with their head down, and then they walk from the car to the building, head down, and then they're there. They don't even remember how they got from their house to there, but they just it's like transport, they're
magic.
They're there. So how?
I just want to finish that. So when
please.
I landed in 93 at the National Center, so then Franck Bardi became my coach, and Franck Bardi made the international athlete I am.
Yeah. So I'm just curious, who do you think have the biggest impact on you? Like Philippe Labeau, you'd say, because he rebuilt.
But they all came at a very specific time. So it's hard to say that. That's why I use those like one initiated me to the sport, one boosted me, and then I had the one who rebuilt me, and then I had the one who transformed me,
who polished you.
Yeah,
polished you
more than polished.
End,
There was but there's another thing I can mention is that throughout all my career, like I did like a district camp, regional camp, national camp. And every single one of those camps had different coaches, whether they were former athletes or actual coaches. Then later in my career, I was exposed to international coaches. So we got a lot of visiting athletes to Antibes, so I got to be exposed to them. So I really think that I was able to pick and choose what was also working with me, and then include that into my training throughout the 17 years that I jumped.
I think that's something that could be unique as well to your country, right? Because you can almost get anywhere by train or by car, right? A lot of times in the United States, when an athlete wants to switch to a different gym, they have to move by plane. It's like 6 hours plane ride, somewhere else.
Yes.
So I think that's something special that maybe some smaller countries have unique. All right, so my next question for you: how many world championships did you compete in, and also did you ever compete in any world age group championships?
I did 3 WAGs. 1990.
3, wow.
1990, 1992, 1994. Dillenburg, Auckland, and Villa du
Conde.
So
wow.
And those 3, I mean, for me, they're very, very, very strong memories, because 1919 Dillenburg was the first one. I finished 3rd, and it was an awesome meet. Like, it was magical. So it was in Dillenburg, Germany, in October, which is not warm, and they had put a dome on top of an outdoor swimming pool, and we had a pool party at night with water that was like, I don't know, 85, 90 degrees. I mean, it was phenomenal. So when you're 13 years old and you're having a pool party in Germany, You just don't forget that easily.
Life can't get any better.
It was.
Why don't we have any more
top of the
pool
food chain?
parties? Huh?
Well,
No,
I
no,
think
bring
those
it
was
back to
different
FIG.
times though. 1990.
I'm gonna ask
Then
the technical committee to bring it pool parties back.
Knock yourself out. Let's go. You know, you get my vote. 1982 Auckland. That was also special because it was like a 30 hours trip, 2 planes of 15 hours because we flew Paris, LA, Auckland, which was 15 hours twice. And at that time, I mean, that was almost as far as you could go for a French dude like us. I mean,
Absolutely.
the French team like us. So that was also special. Then we landed, I mean, the yellow beds, and I mean, it was crazy. One of my favorite memories is, so it's individual finals, and we can see everyone getting ready backstage to line up, but there is one guy missing.
Manu
And it's
Durand.
Moskalenko.
Oh,
I was
Moskalenko.
not World. Moskalenko is missing. Everyone's like, okay, well, where is he? He's leading. I mean, where is he? And Danichenko went to pick him up. He was sleeping in the spectator seat. He was just laying down, crashed, and he wakes him up. And Moskalenko walks down, wiped his eyes. He was the first one to go on the bed. 3 straight jumps, pike drift. They out pike drift. And at that time, we all knew that was done. I mean, he will win. That was for sure. There was no other way.
And
it was just crazy.
Moskalenko.
Just was literally like 5 seconds. He went from sleeping to marching into winning. That was crazy.
I heard that in Portugal when he was World Championships, when he did that amazing routine, I heard there was some stories like that too, that he was outside smoking or something like that, and then he just comes inside and it's my time. Okay, let's go. Let's line up.
And 94, he was not leading. He was not first after podiums. But that routine, when you talk about defining moment, because when we compete world age, like we always come like 2-3 days. Like in Auckland, we came 2 weeks prior because the length of the trip. But for like let's say Villa do Conde, we were there a week before just to watch World Championships finals.
Yep.
And that routine, I mean, it got everyone standing on their feet in no time. We just knew we had witnessed something extraordinary. It was a very special moment to have witnessed Moskalenko's 14 at the individual finals of Worlds in Porto was crazy.
Yeah, and that routine is gonna stay forever. I think that routine is gonna stay forever. It's gonna be a mark of our sport.
But he did it twice because he did exactly the same in Sydney. So
yes,
in Sydney,
yes.
what was crazy in Sydney is that they flew very late to the games. They came, unlike other countries, like where people landed a little bit earlier to adapt to the jet lag and everything. Like the Russian team came in very late. I think 2 or 3 days. Like they didn't have much time in the training gym. They spend most of the time under the actual competitive gym. And we know they just landed and he stepped on the tram. And on his first pass, he did 40. And we just knew again.
Game over.
That there was 1 gold medal and he was already taken. So that was insane. I mean, that was insane.
Wow.
So yeah, 3 world age. 1992, 94, all of them great events, every single one of them.
What about World Championships? How many World Championships?
4. So I did 96 in Vancouver, 98 in Sydney, 99 in Sun City, and 2001 in Odense.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So what was the highest point in your career as far as results, but also as far as emotionally, right? So a lot of the guests that we have on, most of them, there are different things, right? So what's your highest points in your career? Maybe they're the same, maybe they're different.
Well, I mean, all worlds were very special for different reasons. Like 96 was the first one, and it was a very, very young French team that walked in that competition gym, because we were like it was Guillaume Bourgeon, David Martin, myself. So 3 young guys who had no world experience. It was all our first one. And then we had Fabrice Hennick, who was kind of the team captain because he already had competed in Worlds prior. And I think he did a great job. I think it was just phenomenal to have him as a team captain because he was able just to keep us focused on what was important and what was not. And have us relax a little bit when we needed to. So it was just to have that kind of energy was, I think, was defining in the rest of the events. So those prelims were, you dream of the perfect routines, and they did just happen. So that was my prelims in '96. I remember the night before we were having dinner with Frank, and he's like, "So, Manu, you're about to compete your first Worlds. How you feeling?" I'm like, "Well, I'm feeling great. I think I'm going to sleep great. I'm going to sleep. I think I'm going to dream that I'm going to have 3 10s tomorrow in my compulsory. I'm going to score 40 points on my option." And then he was smiling, and then went to sleep. So the next day I did get 110 on my compulsory, and I did 41.7 on my optional. So it was just the scoring was so high that I remember Philippe trying to understand how it was mathematically possible to get to 71.2 at that time on the newspaper, because we didn't have much way to communicate. So he was just looking at what's coming through the media, and he was like, "No, they made a mistake. It's a typo. It's just impossible." But it wasn't. And then we had the team final, which was a very defining moment for us, because Fabrice went first and he missed. So we knew that we had lost our joker, and we all had to just, go for it. And Guillaume hit it. David, who didn't have the best prelims, did a fantastic optional in team finals, fought his way all the way to the end. And then I still have a bit of magical dust from the afternoon, and I did score another 41.3 in the evening, which led us to the goal. So winning that gold medal with the team, it was the second one from the French team, because the last time they won it was in '82, the first time that trampoline had the team finals. So that was very, very special moment for sure. Like winning a team event in an individual sport is just dear. It's just very dear to your heart. Like it shows everything that we went through and the passion we share. So it was great. So '96. Then after individual finals didn't go as well. Synchro prelims were not great, but synchro finals were great. So, but all in all, I mean, it was for first World Championships. It was just fantastic.
So how does it feel to be the only person that ever got a 10 on execution?
Well, I'm surprised, because I really think that there's a couple of other guys who should have got on the 10 since then.
That's a different subject. That's a different subject. Until now, you're the only one that has.
I remember Moskalenko. I think it was World Cup in England. He did a crazy compulsory. That's the World Cup where Dimitri broke the total record on the optional with his 42.1.
Was that in England?
Yes, it was England.
Yeah.
I want to say I forgot exactly the city where it was.
I forgot the name too.
But I remember, I mean, Sasha did a crazy compulsory that day. Like I was like, that's it. That's another one. It was crazy. And then since then, I mean, Dong Dong, Slava.
Yeah, there's definitely some really great compulsories after you, but no one got that desired 10.
It's the machines. They just stop at 9-9. It's too many numbers.
So you said, obviously we know the results, and you went on after you scored that tremendous compulsory. But after you looked at that score, right, and you saw it was 30.5 or 30.7.
It was
right?
29.5.
Or 29.5. Sorry,
yeah,
29.5. Right? Did you say, "Oh shit, I have to live up to a good optional now,"
yes.
Or did you feel more comfortable?
It was all full.
Okay.
Oh no, it was all
really?
full, because you're like, I can't miss my optional. I can't do that, otherwise it's done. And it was funny because I mean, that moment when it happened, it was shared. Like it was like all the audience just knew what they witnessed, and I was with my buddies. I remember Mads Lestrup from Denmark. He was sitting right alongside by me during prelims, and we just were looking at each other like, dude, it's crazy. But I knew back in my mind, like, I have to do the optional now. So yeah, it was more pressure for me for sure.
Gotcha. So my next question: how was David competed in Sydney, right? What
Yes.
was that process like? Did he earn that spot from the World Championships, or did you guys compete against each other in France for that spot? What was that process like?
We had a strategy. We wanted to put two individual finalists in Sydney, and 3 of us could do it because Guillaume was already a finalist in '96 and '98, so he had all the potential to be finalist in '99. Both David and I could, so the goal was to get 2 in it, so it would not be nominated. We would just earn the berth, and then after that we'll do domestic qualification to know who would go. Unfortunately, that didn't go well. The meet didn't go well for Guillaume, didn't go well for me, but it went well for David, which was great because 96 and 98 didn't go great for him. But in 99, the time that we needed him the most, he showed up, he finished 3rd, and he got the nominative Olympic berth. So it was, in one hand, it was not the strategy that we had planned on. But on the other hand, it did bring some relief because then there was not going to be any domestic, how can I say, fights or
trials.
It was
yes.
very clear. It was just not even trials. It was just more internal issues, or it was crystal clear who was going. So
who was going?
So we're just there and being training partners and getting ready for the other events. So that's what it became.
So how does that feel for you to have all those scores but never had a chance of being at the Olympic Games? You know that.
I'm half fortunate because even though I didn't compete, I was there. I was there in '96 when we were not Olympic yet, because I did the FIG Gala for trampoline. So,
in Atlanta, yes.
Yeah, it was a funny story because at the last minute they realized that they didn't actually have a synchro team. So they had invited Dimitri, then invited Fabrice Schwertz. They had invited we had Irina, who was there, Karavaeva, Nadine and Hiltrud from Germany, because they were world champion in synchro. But the rest didn't have any men's synchro. So I remember Frog calling me in the morning and said, "Do you have your passport?" I'm like, "Yes." He's like, "Well, I need it because you're flying to Atlanta." I'm like, "What?" And it was hard at that time because the synchro pair with Fabrice was not clear. Like Fabrice and Fabrice were the legendary synchro pair for France. I mean, both of them.
I remember that.
So we had spoken about maybe making a switch of Fabrice and I. So we did a few competitions together. But it's not like we did a full career, you know. But when Frank said, "Okay, well, that's you," so my first thought went to Fabrice Hennick again, because I thought it was probably the one who should have gone there. But ultimately, I had the privilege to fly there and be with the FIG team at that time, because that was not, FIT team even, because we were representing our sport, we're not representing our country. So it was a very special moment, '96 Atlanta. Even though we had to do an hour commute in train and then go through 5 gates to get into the Georgia Dome.
Welcome to the United States.
It was crazy, but it was very nice. Like the camaraderie and the group we were mixed in with sports aerobics. There was acro, tumbling. We're all there.
Was it a large crowd at that point to watch?
It was a Georgia Dome. It was 18,000 people.
Woo.
Georgia Dome.
That was the only time you probably competed or did anything in front of that audience, right?
Correct.
What was that like?
Correct. It was crazy, especially because we were sharing the Georgia Dome with basketball. So on one side you had gymnastics event, on the other side you had basketball events.
Did you get to meet the dream team?
In 1996 it was not the actual dream team. I'm still a big fan of Barcelona team, but Shaquille O'Neal were there, Charles Barkley were there. There's still big NBA legends at the time competing. So yeah, and I remember Shaquille O'Neal coming and standing close to Dominic Moceanu on the Univan bars. So yeah,
It was probably like this, right?
that was fun.
Dominique probably looked like half of a person.
Crazy. They had the photo shoot. I think it was pretty fun. But yeah, to go back to us, it was special because I remember when Fabrice and I went to do our synchronize, we started with 3 quarterback, and all the crowd, like 18,000 people went, and I thought Fabrice fall. I was sure like something bad happened, but no, it was just something new for them. And just the 3 quarterback was enough to take them somewhere else. So yeah, it was a big success for trampoline in '96. It was great.
I feel like we get that at all Olympics. Every time I get to the Olympic Games and the first routine, first trip for the first 3 quarters back, people go, whoa, and start clapping right away.
Even at the World Championships, the first person to go up on their one touch does Triff Pike, and everyone's like, whoa, right? It's always that first thing.
Sport,
And then they watch and they're like,
bring.
that's the same thing the last guy did.
After that, yeah. At the end of the 11 hours of prelims, you're like, okay, let's move on.
Exactly. Well, we just need to be more on TV so people don't get so surprised when they see us the first time.
Indeed.
That's all.
Indeed,
absolutely. So my next question for you, Manu, did you ever have any hardships during your career training, whether that be injuries or mental blocks or skill confusion?
No.
What hardships did you face?
No injury. 17 years.
Lucky Manu. Yep.
Healthy Manu.
Healthy Manu.
10 hours a night and drinking 5 liters of water a day.
Wow.
And my walk.
There you go. The secret.
So that's the secret, if you want to know. 2 gallons of water and fully sleep.
But you did tell us that you had some mental blocks and that you had Philippe Labeau that had to rebuild you. So why don't you run us through that a little bit?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was just it was the complete descent to hell. I mean, my really best buddy Cyril, who was training alongside with me at the National Youth and School, he was blocking out. So I was training with him, and I think either that got into me a little bit, plus my own issues with the coach and with school, and so I think all in all, I just crashed. So I could really out. I could not burn out. Everything was going over. So that's what happened to me. I also used to warm up playing by twisting different ways with Baranis, and that didn't help at all for sure. So
you know.
Oh yeah, I know. But the thing is, like nowadays, people like to twist both ways. Like you should see what I see. It's insane.
I don't let my kids.
Whether it's
my kids twist both ways.
And I would not let mine either. I'm just saying that. Especially in extreme sports, like when you see the tendency, like they all twist both ways, and it's kind of normal for them. But
yeah, snowboarding, right? Front side, back side, they get points for going one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean that's what they do. It's their trend. But as far as I'm concerned, yeah, that didn't work well. So yeah, when I went back to the gym, back to the grind with Philippe, it was just Baranis for 2 hours until to increase confidence level, and then from there we moved to something else.
Yeah,
but it was very difficult.
It's like a virus. If someone has the virus, it will just spread slowly, and then once it gets to you, it spreads to all the skills, and it's very hard to break
it's hard
it
because
you go back.
Because it's kind of a double-edged sword. You don't want to be alone, but you kind of have to be. So it's tricky. It's not fun. I do believe that everyone who goes through that, just like everyone who goes through an injury or everyone who goes through a pandemic, will get back stronger because your brain is resting. You may think a little bit more, but you think different, and you usually get back on the horse stronger.
Absolutely. I agree. If dealt correctly, you can come back even stronger than what you were before.
I believe so.
So my next question, right? So can you take us from the time Because now you work with Cirque du Soleil. So can you take us from the time when you retired from competitive trampoline to working to Cirque du Soleil? Was there an overlap or was there time in between?
There was zero overlap.
So you just so did you retire to go to work with Cirque du Soleil?
I already had planned kind of return, because like after Sun City, that didn't go too well for me. 2000 was an okay year, I'd say. Like the highlight being that we won the team title at the European Championships, something that we were like really working hard for. I mean, I personally, because I was on that team for 4 Europeans, and we didn't get gold, so we really wanted to. And in 2000 we did, and I felt kind of complete. Like when I got that last gold, and it was like, okay, you know what? I think that's great. I mean, you have to understand that between 96 and 2000, I was up like 15 to 18 competitions a year, with most of them international, because we're like maybe 4 or 5 domestic, but most of my competitions were international, whether it was World Cups, European Championships, World Championships, World Cup final. I was also competing in the Bundesliga for the Frankfurt Flyers, with the Kubicas. So for a couple seasons. So, I mean, those were busy. Like my year, I had probably a year or 2 off around Christmas, New Year's, and that was it. All the rest, it was my season. I didn't have high time, I didn't have downtime. It was just non-stop, and that lasted 4 or 5 years. But 2000. So in 2001, I already knew. I mean, I was almost done with individual. My goal was only to compete synchro with David, so we could get to the World Games in Akita, and won that last medal that we didn't have, because we won synchro at European World Cup finals. So World Games was the only one missing. But I left too early, because in July of 2001, I had the opportunity to move on and go to Cirque du Soleil. So I remember the one person I called was not my mom or my dad. I called Frank, and I said, Frank, look, I have this opportunity. What do you think? He's like, go. So that made my choice easy, and I just left. So I did Worlds in July, and then in August I was in Montreal for Cirque du Soleil. So that was the overlap, 1 month. And I did go to Akita, but as a talent scout. I was not competing there.
Gotcha. So, and I was going to say, what was your role with the Cirque du Soleil when you first? Were you ever an athlete or only coach and scout?
No, I started as a talent scout. So a couple of my friends were already working in the casting department, and they had issues with the third one. So that didn't work too well, and they were looking for a replacement, and I stepped in. So the process was pretty long. I waited 1 month before having the decision, but then they decided to take a chance, and I flew. I flew to Montreal.
Now you've been with the Cirque for how long?
Now it's 19 years.
19 years. And so what do you do now on a day-to-day? What do you do now? Coaching. Now you coach. Okay.
Yeah, I did about 2.5, 3 years of casting, and then I met my wife. And she was moving to Vegas, so I followed her to Vegas. There was no casting department at the time in Las Vegas, but there was shows and coaching positions available, and I had the chance to get one. So I started on the creation of Ka for about 4 months on a temporary contract, and then I got a full-time contract on O at the Bellagio for 14 years. And then recently, 2 years ago, I moved to Michael Jackson 1. At the Mandalay Bay. So that's the show I've been working on right now.
So I guess my question is, can you run us through what a day of a coach at Cirque du Soleil is?
Well, it's very different from the day of Nuno Merino
I bet
Merino Trampoline Gymnastics.
Yes, I believe it is.
The goals are very different. Like there's not necessarily Olympics or Worlds in sight for an artist. Like it's more the grind of being able to show up every day and perform 2 shows. That's the Cirque's regimen. So when you're up between 470 and 480 shows a year, it's a very high volume. So the coach basically is there to make sure that we make the artists go through that volume mentally and physically, week after week, year after year. So that's one aspect of the coach's job. So it's a lot of workload management. The other one is risk management. So we make sure that the environment is sound, whether it's technically with the tricks or technically with the equipment, so that the artist can perform at their best. And then we are also part of what we call the artistic team. So the artistic team is kind of the operations team that manage the show. And as such, we have a voice in the decision making of the daily operation. So that's pretty much what Cirque du Soleil coach do.
Wow, that's awesome. And what's different? What do you like about the Cirque du Soleil that maybe trampoline didn't give you, or what's different? What do you really enjoy about working with these artistic athletes as opposed to competitive?
What I enjoyed the most when I was competing was meeting everyone and having the great time in such that little community that is ours, because it's very unique, you know. I think one of the best way to describe us is risk takers, and that's not from me. That's from Mickey King, very famous U.S. female diver, who said that, you know, we're a special breed, we're risk takers. And that's why when we meet with a diver, with a gymnast, or there's such a kind of bond, because I think that's the best way to describe us. And I think in trampoline, definitely big risk takers, especially nowadays on those 4x4s. I mean, the risk has increased tremendously. Yeah, being surrounded by the community and the friends, that's what priceless. So what Cirque brought me is that I have that every day. So I am just completely surrounded by different cultures, and so that's definitely what's make it very unique.
That's awesome.
So now that you touched on the 4x4s, why don't we talk a little bit and shift this to a little bit of the competition is today? Because I know that you follow the competition. I loved when on the and I don't want to mistake, but maybe on the past 2 or 3 World Championships, you always did a little bit of a chronicle after that, and your observation of the competition. So I love to hear those, because I think it's important. I think it's important for us to get the perspective from the outside, so we can change things on the inside. If we don't hear what's happening on the outside, then we can't really change anything on the inside. So
sometimes it's just because you look at different things too.
Correct. Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. So tell us, what have you observed since you left the sport and that transition to the 4x4? I think it was a big step, but on the athletes, on the evolution, what have you observed? And then we'll talk a little bit about the new cutoff points that's coming for the next cycle. Sounds
good. Well, I mean, you know, when I remember the first Chinese team coming to Antibes in 1998. So they were, you know, just the kind of a team that was built from maybe athletes that were just very close to making the team in tumbling and diving and gymnastics. Mm-hmm. And that was the first Chinese team. So they were not trampolinists per se.
So a train wreck of a team.
They just came from different sport. And I mean, it was wild. It was wild. Like, they were physically fitter and more flexible than every single one of us.
They were so powerful. I remember the first ones I saw jump, they were so powerful. It was power that they could give to people around them, but no control.
Zero control. So, I mean, it was those trainings, I mean, it was fall after fall and heavy falls, man. Those mats, they were ramming to them. And girls too. I mean, that was crazy. So that was, but then they learned. And they learned quick. And the domination that they brought to the sport is just crazy. The thing that surprised me most is I was expecting more what kind of the trends in artistic gymnastics, where they have kind of a new team every 4 years. They make 1 or 2 seniors, but they just bring new blood, and it's just, the level is just insane. Where
honestly, I agree with you. And I think in the beginning we saw a little bit of that, but then got to a point where Dong Dong and Tu Chiao stayed, and boom.
And now Gaolet. There's 3, right?
And now Gaolet, yes.
But before that, you know, it was Yeshuai, it was Liu Shunlong. I mean, all these guys, they lasted a couple of cycles easily. So it's interesting to see like how wrong I was, and actually those guys lasting forever and staying at the top, like really at the top. So it's, for me, that's the first thing that I found like crazy. I mean, that they managed to get 4 individuals at a time where they were all the individual world champions in the same team. And that's a feat that I think is just, you know, it just sums it all. I mean, to have 4 guys in the team where I remember at our time for the French team with Guillaume, David, and I mean, we had 3 guys who were potential to do a final and medal, but not potential to get 3 gold. But they have 4 guys who won 4 gold in the same team. And yeah, this is just, no one else has ever reached that level. But I also want to salute Belarus, you know, because Belarus has been really piggybacking. I recently saw something on YouTube where they have there was a very good documentary of the training center, and the training center, I mean, it's like, and it's crazy, so good, top of the food chain. They have everything dedicated to the sport. So that, to me, explains a little bit maybe why they're not that far, if not so close. But yeah, that's pretty much where I see the sport right now.
So what about well, I guess before we get to the code of points, let's do the code of points next, and then we'll go to the sport. What are your thoughts about, so 2-part question. Number 1, what are your thoughts about the new code of points? And number 2, where do you see the sport going with these code of points? What do you think we're going to see different, or it's going to be the same routines, new skills? How do you see us adapting to these new code of points?
Well, I'm personally, I remember when I was in Nuno's role as the athlete rep, and I brought up the idea of terminating compulsory routines. I mean, that didn't go well at all. I wasn't popular that day. It was very funny.
The world was not ready. The world was not ready.
Definitely not. I mean, it was just no way. Like, I don't know how many representatives were in the room, maybe 30, 40, but I mean, it was a massive no. So, okay, I got the message. That's it. But as far as I'm concerned, I mean, artistic gymnastics took that decision a long time ago to remove compulsories from their programs because they were facing some of our current issues in terms of lengths of competition and lack of variety. But with the recent decision made, of course, I'm in favor. I think it's great that we finally move on to something that's going to be a bit more competitive. And more acrobatic for sure. I mean, the difficulty level is going to be just not necessarily much higher, but at least it's going to be more appreciated by the audience for sure. So we're gonna kill some repetition.
Yeah, I think we'll see a little bit of an increase because people will have 2 opportunities. They'll have a chance to kind of do whatever they want if they do good, right? So I think it opens the door to strategy, which I think is very important. We didn't have much before.
When I texted you, so that was my whole point. Like I one hand, I think is great. I do think that it will allow a lot of growth in the sport. And it's not necessarily happening, at least it's allowing it, which is great. The fact that kind of have a problem with is that I always felt that trampoline was different from other sport because we couldn't make any mistake. It wasn't allowed. It was just not, you fall, you just don't go back on the apparatus. You just travel 6,000 miles and you're done. Thank you so much. But that was Formula One, that was the kind of sport we're in, the one where mistake is not allowed. So with that said, I mentioned also that I think out of these 2 optionals, one should be dedicated for teams and one should be dedicated for individual, which makes it a little bit even more strategy coming in play and does not necessarily allow that notion that you can miss because you get a second chance.
So we talked a little bit on the previous episode, and I want I said that is still something that is being discussed. You know, there is a possibility that one
Okay.
or the best one will be for individual, and then for team, either both combined or something like that.
I think the
Some
best one
decisions being made.
best one for individual sounds fair, and then lowest one for team. And if it's a zero, it's a zero, and that may be allowing another team to make it to some finals.
I think that would squash the argument of people saying that consistency is being thrown out the window, and whoever, you know, can throw the best trick, you know, wins. So I think using both of those routines would kind of squash that argument. What are your thoughts on execution? Where do you see this change taking the sport? Because I know if you look at Gaulet, right, and if you watch Gaulet jump in slow motion, you'll see the knees bent in the pike, you'll see the open positions, right? But it's scoring the highest.
That's because we have HD. Huh? It's only because the slow-mo is really, really good.
But this is the point. I think if in the 90s, I think those judges, if you had even if your legs, if your kneecaps were a little bit above, if you had bad knees, you would get deduction. And I feel like now the sport is slowly getting so far away from that.
I'm going to be honest with you, Steve. I think in terms of execution, we're miles away from the 90s. I mean, this is so much better. I really think that when we had maybe one athlete that for me that like, and I'm not talking about Sasha necessarily, but we think about the Kazakh who had the line, who had, like, you know, the toe, straight legs. Beautiful. And I really think, honestly, that was the first one that the Chinese tried to copy. I really think that they took his style and just brought it to where they are now. But I see a lot of Kazakh in a lot of the Chinese team personally, in terms of style and elegance. You know, it's
honestly, what Kazakh did with his hands, I think no one can ever simulate. It was so phenomenal.
Or his head.
It was so and his head, and these hands, and the way he put his hands on the side of the body, it was simply extraordinary, and no one can really reproduce that. But I can see what you're saying. I can see the Chinese getting his style and try to copy. I really think
that in terms of execution, we've gone miles from where we were. It's the trampoline is pretty early right now for me, so I'm not necessarily concerned with execution. I'm pretty sure that because of the generation of coaches that are still in charge, I mean, and the fact that you will still have compulsory programs into younger categories, I mean, execution will remain. And I think in all honesty, if you look at the technical level as well, to be able to jump on those 4x4 and stay on those 4x4, if you don't have proper technique, you won't have proper form and you won't have proper DD. So it's a whole package.
Well, I think there's technique or form in the bed, and then there's aerial technique, and I think those are almost mutually exclusive. Right? You could have someone perfectly in the bed and then they have sloppy legs in the air. Right? I don't think someone could have perfect timing in the bed and still bend their knees in the air. Right? So does it happen often? No, but we certainly see it.
Yeah, I don't know if it's enough to make such a difference. I mean, they're good. They're just good.
So I have another two-part question. So number one, in your career, you were pushing the envelope, doing full half Travis pike, right? All of these skills. So my first question is, did you do that for strategy to win, or did you just enjoy pushing the limits of the routine or the sport? And my second part of that is, where do you see those athletes that are leading the way pushing the envelope to the next step?
Yeah, it's funny because you had asked me at age 13 what I wanted to be between the world champion and the world difficulty record holder. I was going to tell you I want to be a world difficulty record holder, and that has driven me along all my career. Now, if you ask me the same question, I think I would have liked to be a world champion, but
which you achieved, which is great.
Not in individual.
What do you mean? You would achieve?
Second.
Oh, you were second place. Sorry.
Second place individually.
Yes,
First
Sorry.
place synchronized team.
close.
In my mind,
Very
you're the
close.
world champion.
Very close twice. First after prelims twice, all the way. In Sydney, we did prelims at 8 in the morning. So that's a funny one too, because in '96, remember, we're team world champion in '96. So you would think that we would have some advantage as far as the draw for the next worlds and go a bit later in the day. No. 8 a.m. Let's go, boys. And so I was first in my group, and I stayed first until the end of the day, which was like 6 or 7 at the time. That was a
must have
good
been
one.
awesome
That was
to watch.
'98. It was great. It was like, is that gonna stay? Is that gonna stay? Yes. But anyways, so difficulty just has always been driving me. I have to say that in '98, so after Worlds where I finished third, and '99 being the Olympic qualification, and we knew that Moskalenko was going to be top form. So, I mean, in order to beat him, I had to pull like a Dimitri card, like he tried to do in '94 by increasing his DD and doing the Poliarush. So that was and I think that was the right strategy, because we were no match with Sasha in terms of height or form, but Didi, there was always a chance to do more than 14. So how do you get to that? So one of the things that I picked was to do the prestige trick of bringing back the three fish really out. So that was basically what I competed on the whole year of '99 with the pike 340 start. Unfortunately, my strategy didn't pay much. The 340 out pike looked good, but the rest not so good. But that was the motivation behind to do that big trick.
If you want a big reward, you have to take a big risk, right? That's
against
necessary.
Moskalenko, you have to take a huge risk.
Yeah, I guess. Well, Moskalenko, I don't think it's been proven whether or not he's robot or not still. So maybe like in 20 years from now, when they do like for 40 years from now, when they go back and do the autopsy and they find half of his body is made out of metal, I think, they'll go back and
it's only his mind that's
change the results.
His mind is made of metal.
So
his body is not doing very well right now.
Fair enough. So part two of the question, right? So you were trying to push to be the best, to beat Moskalenko by doing this tripperty outs and full front halves and fulls. What do you see, right, to those athletes that are in your place right now, trying to beat Dong, trying to beat Vlad, right? Where do you see what skills or routines do you see them trying to pull off?
Well, definitely and unfortunately, no Bernie full or full, because the new code is not really keen with those tricks if you don't mark the positions. So that's probably my biggest regret when that changed. I think a little bit like it's the same double-edged sword. I think it brought a lot of uniformity in the sport with all the full halves being very clear. But it did, unfortunately, kill some elements like the full half or the full that I think nowadays would not be worth performing, because you would lose too much in execution.
Yeah, because of the deduction on the puck position. Yeah,
correct.
But
do a full
but nowadays they have
your
pike.
knees,
that would be extremely hard.
Full front half pike, full front Rudy
you have to
pike.
do it straight. Yeah, and
right, 1.5 front half pike, 1.5 front Rudy pike, right? So there are some other options that I think that
there are definitely other options. That's the 4x4 are nicer ways, because I think the equipment also allow to do those bigger elements. Personally, I really want to see that first year of 2022. I really want to see that transition and see where it's going to lead. I think to beat guys like Dong or like Vlad, I mean, you got a young Ivan Litvinovic who's just showing that, not necessarily to do harder or look better, but you can jump higher, believe it or not. So you got someone with just consistency, height, and he's just bringing in all the mix to be very, very competitive, as he's shown recently. So if you still follow the recipe with, height, horizontal displacement, DD, and form, and you find the best mix, then I still think everything is possible. You just have to find the best mix to get to those, 61, 62 points.
Absolutely. No.
So you think
what's the mix? What's the mix? We don't know yet.
They don't know
you think
it
it's
yet.
going to stay similar, right? Because I feel like now we've had enough time with HD, time of flight, execution difficulty, that people have started to find the perfect strategy for their highest scores, right? Mm-hmm. So you think that's just going to continue?
But you see the strategy that they start with, usually it's 4-3-14 or 5-3-14 in prelims, and then they go 5 or 6 in finals. So that, maybe you're going to see a little bit more 5 or 6 in prelims on that first.
Do you think we'll see any quads? Do you think we'll see any quads, or we'll stick with?
I'm hoping we'll see a quarter. I don't want too many, that's for sure. But I'm very suspicious that a little Russian will come up with a nice squad at some point. I would not be surprised. They already did it.
I think
we have a few individuals.
Dubko has something for quads. He already had a couple athletes doing quads in the past. I think he has something for quads. So I think for sure we'll have one little prodigy coming out of Krasnodar that will bring a quad.
It's very possible. But I think, we've seen it in the past, and I think we'll keep seeing it again. I don't think necessarily we should see too many of them, but I think there is a reason why quads are still prohibited in freestyle skiing. So it's definitely like the risk is really worse the outcome. So, but for people who have the level and the control, go for it.
The quad isn't the problem, right? It's the quad is the easy part. It's the next skill that's the problem.
just like, and the next one, until you get to 10.
Oh man! All right, well, Manu, I wish we could stay here all day, but unfortunately, we have to say goodbye. Thank you so much for joining us, sharing your knowledge, your stories. Hopefully we can do this again, right? We'll have, I'm sure, people commenting some questions for you, and maybe we can do it again sometime. So thank you for your time. Good luck through this uncertain times during this pandemic. I wish you and your family safety. I hope you guys get to continue enjoying some time together, right? Finding that silver lining in all of this. And we wish you the best of luck with Cirque du Soleil. And remember, you're always welcome back into trampoline. It's never too late to come back.
I was just thinking that you could start your own club in Las Vegas. Come on, you're already coaching Cirque du Soleil. Just to start your own club in Las Vegas.
That's the businessman talking, or the trampoline coach? I don't know.
Both.
Of course, it's the package deal in the States.
There you go.
No, but
thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Make no mistake, trampoline is still there, very, very, very shining, very brightly. And I may be available for camps if you guys need anything.
Hey, there we go.
So we'll see what the future holds. But for now, thanks for having me today, guys. You take care.
So if someone wanted to reach out to you, maybe bring you in as a clinician or something, how can they reach you?
I'm on Facebook. Pretty much everyone has my number. It's pretty easy to find.
Okay. So, and it's Manu Durand or Emmanuel Durand?
Emmanuel.
All right. So go ahead, look him up. If you guys are interested in having Manu, the famous Manu, out to your gym. And it would be a great experience, I know, so I don't mean to get sidetracked, but you came to work with the U.S. national teams a couple times. And it was so much fun, right? It was a lot of fun. I had a blast.
We'll do a handshake against you.
I still hear from I still hear from some athletes when Manu went to the training camp. He was so great. I was like, okay.
It was. Well, thanks again, Manu. We wish you the best of luck.
Thank
you.
We'll
see you again.
It was great to hear from you.
Bye-bye.
That concludes our conversation with world champ Manu Durand. We hope you enjoyed learning about his history and the stories that he shared with us. If you have a question for Manu, or maybe you want to share a story, do so by commenting below. You could email us at trampolineinsight@gmail.com. You can reach us on Twitter @trampinsight or on Instagram @trampolineinsight. You can also send us a voice message with questions or opinions by following the link in the episode description. Thank you guys for listening. We can't wait to see you guys on the next. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your trampoline friends so we can grow.
See you guys soon.